Hello, my name is Stephan Emmanuel. I am a senior at Enloe High School, and I am here with Miss Waltye Rasulala, and it is my honor to be able to introduce her to you all as our Wade County Public School System Hall of Fame inductee in the arts. Miss Rasulala has been an educator, a performer, and advocate for the arts throughout our community. She has also been able to manage grants, direct arts education, community-based programs, as well as perform. Ms. Waltye, you have impacted this community incredibly, so could you maybe share with us something that has motivated you through your time?
Well, I think a lot of things. I think number one, my family really had motivated me. They certainly are the ones that taught me what service was and what the arts were and what medicine was. I come from a family of physicians. I come from a family of artists. I had a grandmother, my paternal grandmother, who was a writer, a musician, and also a teacher, and loved putting young people together in groups and getting them to perform. So my first introduction to all of that and the wonderful service it did for a community was certainly through her. So I guess that sort of gave me a lot of direction as I decided what I wanted to do in life. And I must admit, I had a cross between medicine or between music and the performing arts, but the music won out, and I was glad that it did. Yeah.
And I'm glad you said that, because many years ago we talked in the lobby before that. You were my very first music teacher, and I feel like that just says so much about your impact on the community. When my principal emailed me asking me to host this, I was super excited. I doubt that he even knew that connection that we made. So it's definitely a very full circle moment. Could you possibly share with us someone in the community, or maybe a leader that you're motivated by and inspired by, someone whose traits you might choose to emulate?
Well, of course, I mentioned my family, and certainly my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, gave me the gift of performing and gave me the gift of music. But if I talked about this community and the people I've worked with and the people I've shared time with over the airways with WRAL, I think in the recent years I've been working with Elizabeth Beelman from the North Carolina Symphony, cellist with the symphony, and she and her husband founded the North Carolina Chamber Music Institute, a group of talented young people playing chamber music and performing. And certainly I've watched her and her dedication with working with those young people, and especially during this time of the COVID-19 virus. And she had the group of kids online right away, and they continued with their performing. They even did a recital in the spring. And the young people are wonderful to work with her group in many ways. I work with them to teach them speech and performance, and how to walk on stage, how to be comfortable on stage, how to present yourself as a musician on stage so that the audience relates to you right away. So many instrumental musicians will hide behind their instruments, and it's very hard for them to come out and let their personalities come out. But so many of the kids, through working with me and working with Liz, have really starred and come out quite well with their instruments as musicians, but also as performers on stage.
Definitely now more than ever, we're in need of arts, and making sure our students are able to have mentors like you to be able to guide us through these times. Absolutely. So could you maybe share any advice that you might have for maybe someone like me who might be pursuing a career in performance or any kind of work with students?
Well, I think every child who can get the opportunity they should involve themselves in the arts. The arts are healers. The arts are communication between many countries and many individuals. It's the language of communication in that fashion. And certainly for any young person, whether you're going to go into music or not, or performing arts in any way, you always have that. You may go into the business world and sit in an office all day long, but when you come home, you may want to sit down at that piano and play something
Yeah.
for yourself or for your family, or pick up that violin, or play that cello, or maybe join a community group, a choir, or a group of a band, or an orchestra. So I think it's a value for every child to have that experience. I would say, as you think about what you want to do, and if you want to do this as a career, open your mind to all sorts of things that you see out there and you hear out there. Research it. Talk to people who are doing what you think you would like to do. And you will find out that there will be so many other types of open doors for you. For instance, years and years ago, young people thought, well, the only thing I can do with music is perhaps just to maybe perform and maybe not perform. But now there's music therapy, and it's used quite frequently. And we know, as I said, music is a healer. And so certainly that is another facet of that you can take. I personally thought I could combine my interest in medicine and music, and did so at one point in my life, and when I finished graduate school and taught as a music therapist in a private school in New York. And it's a wonderful thing to see what happens when somebody opens themselves up to music.
Arts and all the sciences are becoming even more, intersectional. I think that's absolutely beautiful. And you mentioned that you've worked in New York, you've worked in North Carolina, DC, LA. Could you maybe share with us one moment or one of your favorite moments in all of your work?
Wow. There was something to learn from all of them, I think,
Yeah.
and some of them, sort of unexpected. For instance, when I, as I mentioned, I did teach, worked with young kids that were either autistic or emotionally disturbed in a private school in New York. And it was interesting. I really wasn't seriously looking for that job, but I did think about music therapy as perhaps my graduate degree. So when I saw riding the subway in New York, and I saw an ad for music therapist for exceptional children, I said, well, I'm going to look into this. And so right away, that's what I mean about looking at other opportunities, looking at as much as thrown out there for you, because something good is going to come out of that. And so I interviewed and ended up teaching at the Adams School for Exceptional Children for a couple of years. While I was doing that, I got a tap from a friend of mine who said, I've been doing this Broadway show for a while and I don't want to do it anymore, so why don't you come down and audition? And I was studying with a vocal teacher, and with the intention of going to Europe to continue my studies there. And I went down to the theater, auditioned, and the next thing I know, I was being measured for her costume and being asked if I had an equity card, which at that time I didn't, and they said, well, get one. And 2 weeks later, I was on stage in my first Broadway show. Something that a lot of people wait around a long time and audition a lot in New York for. It happened to be Hello Dolly, and happened to be a long-running one for me, which I was very pleased with, and I toured with that. And then similarly for me, as I said, television came along just by auditioning, being in Washington, D.C., and going to a communications conference and auditioning and interviewing with someone from one of the stations there, WJLA it is now, was WMAL. And next thing I knew, I was on an hour-long daily live program for children, a children's program. And so I signed a contract on a Friday, was on air on Monday. So a lot of things, I've been very lucky, a lot of things have happened for me. But I have been open to each experience and thinking, this should be something that I'll learn from, and I have. Subsequently, because of that relationship in Washington, it brought me, well, I went to California and did some work there, but then my manager in Washington had moved here as general manager of WRAL, Fred Barber, and he brought me here to Raleigh, which I spent a major portion of my time in communication. So I think I've learned a lesson from all of them, from every avenue. teaching certainly at the community music school where I taught you and I teach several other kids, it's just been wonderful to watch the blossoming of young people and to see them, to have them as a first teacher and then to see them years later and what they're able to do with that. And added to that is my experience with the Pieces of Gold that I do every year and watching the young people on stage. I love sitting there on the sidelines and just seeing them perform and seeing them glow in the light of the stage lights and the audience, the response from the audience. So it's opening your mind to what can be new and can be different and not be afraid of it. Research it, talk to people that you know that are doing it, and go for it.
Yeah. And going for your dreams, especially in the arts, is definitely such a privilege, and I am very thankful that you've been able to go around and talk to students and teach students and be able to plant those seeds, because maybe someone else is going to be on Broadway following in your footsteps. Yeah, and so to conclude, I feel like this last question is very timely. We're in a time we have a global pandemic and a reckoning against racial injustice. So what hope do you have that you could share with us about the future and what that might look like for you?
Well, things do seem very dire for us right now. Many things have been happening for us for several months with the virus and with the racial unrest. And my prayer and my wish is to see that we have peace that can be established around us, that we all collectively keep those very positive vibrations of peace and love and understanding for all we come in contact with and all we reach out to. Because it's only through love and through establishing love and peace that we're going to exist. If not, we'll fail. And so keep the love, keep the peace.